Welcome to Vision Pros, the show all about spatial computing, visionOS, and getting work done on the Apple Vision Pro. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
I wanted to add a spatial element as well, otherwise it would be like a floating big iPad version of the app. So I added like that you can open the notes in a sticky view and place it anywhere in your world to have that like visionOS extra.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Vision Pros. Joining us today on the podcast is the developer behind the awesome app Capture, which you can find out now for visionOS as well as your other Apple platforms. Besides diving into Capture, we also talk about his experiences importing the headset into Amsterdam, his favorite uses of it, and what he's most looking forward to with visionOS 2, which you can install at the time of release of this podcast. And for the next episode of this podcast, we will be diving deep into visionOS 2 and doing a deep dive all about this awesome software update. As a reminder, you can support the podcast by subscribing in Apple Podcasts or by heading over to visionpros.fm/Patreon. By supporting the podcast financially, you'll get episodes early of both this podcast and iPad Pros. My thanks to everyone that supports the show. And finally, as a reminder, if you have not yet left a review in Apple Podcasts for Vision Pros, I'd really encourage you to do so. Every review goes a really long way in helping others discover the show by giving the right signals to Apple to show this podcast more in search. With that, here's my discussion all about Capture. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Furkan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I came across your app, Capture, when I was just browsing the App Store, and there's so few text apps. I was like, oh my gosh, a breath of fresh air. We've got this like, it seems like a, kind of almost like a drafts alternative for, if you want to look at it that way. I'm not sure. Yeah. You probably have different ways of describing kind of the purpose and utility of your app, but we'll dive in that in a little bit. But can you share a bit on your background, and welcome to the podcast?
Yeah, thanks. About my background, I did a semi-technical study, information sciences, but I was always interested in like the Apple platform, and I actually started like fiddling around with apps and creating and writing code before my study. So yeah, along the study I created some small apps, but never was great at programming. But I managed to release my first app in the store, and after that I was kind of curious how creating apps in like the real world or the business world worked. I joined an agency a couple of years ago, again to see how the business side of things work and like learn a bit about programming. So yeah, I always did keep making apps on the side, and learned a lot at the agency, and since March this year, I went full indie again.
Nice. And Capture is your first like main like big app or whatever you've released and put out there?
No, actually, it's not the first one. I have a different app. It's called Channels Pro, some media utility app. That was the first big one.
Okay.
And Capture. There were two developer-related apps, some analytics kind of things.
Yeah.
And after that, Capture came around.
Okay, very cool. And what's your background with different like headsets? Is the Apple Vision Pro your first device like this, or are you an enthusiast for this kind of, platform type, other headsets and whatnot?
Yeah, I would say the Vision Pro is my first real device and encounter with VR. I tried it once in a gaming hall with a like cheap headset on. Yeah. And I always thought like it's nice. I'm a tech enthusiast. I read it in the news, but I always thought it's a bit gimmicky, bit for gaming. But then Apple came with the more consumer-faced headset, and I thought, yeah, I have to get that one.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the past, like these have just been mostly just for gaming because the display quality just isn't there. Like, So it was a kind of revelation when I saw, Look at this text resolution here. I can actually work in here. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you live out in Amsterdam. So you've had to import your unit, and I don't think they've even launched the App Store, right? Because is Germany the closest place that's launched it so far? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what was that import process like?
So yeah, it first became available in the US, and I immediately wanted it. So I looked around for ways to get it. I even considered like buying a ticket and flying to the US.
Yeah.
Or I looked at online marketplaces like people that brought it from the US and sold it with a premium. And it was actually right around the time when I was going to leave the agency, and they asked me like a goodbye gift. What would you like to have? Mm-hmm. It's a small gift where they give to everyone that leaves. And I hate asking for gifts, but I asked for a favor. I said like, you could do me a favor by like handling all the paperwork and taxes and things. I will pay for everything, but like that would really make me happy. They already had a headset, so they did the process, and they have like connections in the US. So they said sure, and within a couple of weeks, I got one in my hands.
That's awesome. And
yeah,
as far as the headbands and all the light seals, did you do a scan to try to get a close enough fit, or how'd you handle that stuff?
Yeah, so the one at the office, I tried that one. It was a 21W, I think.
Yeah, that's like the standard size I think most people get, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that fitted okay. I had some light leak at the bottom of my eyes, but it was nothing horrible. So when I did the scan and I got a 21W as well, I thought, yeah, that's probably the best fit for me. I haven't tried others. When the Apple Vision Pro launches in the Netherlands, I'll probably try some others in the store and see if I can find a better one and switch.
Yeah, but, it's fun to experiment with that stuff because, I had an initial scan, then I tried a different one. I kind of like it better, but in some ways I like the other one more. It's a lot of options with that. Yeah,
exactly.
Are your eyes nice and perfect, or do you have contacts, or how's that story?
No, I don't have contacts, so I didn't have to get the size.
Yeah. No, it's definitely the ideal if you have nice eyes.
Yeah.
That's the one. This product's so unique with like do you need glasses in there? Do you the light seal, all that kind of stuff? Yeah, we thought Apple Watch bands were complicated enough,
Yeah, that's right. And when I let my friends or family try, and they have glasses, it's like, oh, you want to try it, but you can't. You have to have contacts in.
Yeah,
most
there's
of
no
them
way.
Don't.
Yeah,
so,
scratching up the lenses and all that. Yeah,
exactly.
So, what has been kind of your favorite uses of the device outside of developing for it?
Probably, I think, like most people, the media consumption, watching movies and closing yourself out, or with the environments from Apple or from the streaming services, like apps that really take advantage of the platform, like they use 3D very well, or add that extra layer to the app instead of a floating window. But I would say mostly media consumption is what I like the most.
Yeah, it's definitely the most like impressive thing for sure. Like loading up, one of the apps for, either Apple TV or, just even HBO Max, and just like, hey, here's a nice big window. And visionOS 2 has been awesome because you can now use the system environments with any app, which is nice because sometimes you just want that over like the Game of Thrones thing, which is less than stellar.
Yeah.
Do you have favorite environments you've been utilizing?
I like the one from Disney Plus, like the Marvel.
Yes. Yeah.
That one is nice. And just the Apple ones are great.
Yeah. The Moon one I've noticed is kind of my favorite when I'm using a third-party app that has the black bars and video players because it hides the black bars the best. I found
nice.
because it's so dark in there. So I've been using the Moon a lot more recently when I'm kind of going in third-party apps.
Oh, nice. That's a nice hack.
As far as software gaps in visionOS, what are the big ones for you that you hope the developer spends some time and creates a nice visionOS version of their app?
visionOS is a different platform, so it's hard for me to compare it with like my Mac or iPhone.
Yeah.
So I haven't really noticed a big gap. It's just different. But, Apple is iterating a lot and the developers as well. So I welcome the improvements they make with every version. I would say a noticeable gap for me is like the lack of support for the Dutch language. It's a platform where typing is not the best, like the ideal way. So dictation is used a lot, but I can't right now dictate in Dutch. So I have to type a lot. So I was probably, the Dutch language, if you can call that a software gap.
Right. Yeah. So with input, there's no software keyboard for you in Dutch, right? And autocorrect would not work as well, I'm guessing.
Not yet, no.
And if you hooked up a Dutch keyboard to visionOS, does it not even recognize like a hardware keyboard as well?
It does.
It does. Okay.
Yeah, but it stays in like English, in the English language.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that'd be frustrating. I mean, I can imagine.
It is, and it like autocorrects my Dutch words in English as well, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, because I know when they launched, they brought it French and all these other things, but still some big gaps there. That seems like a major one not to include.
Exactly. Yeah.
As far as the headset itself, are you just using the stock bands, or have you made any comfort modifications?
So I've looked around the comfort modifications, but I really like the aesthetic of the Vision Pro. That's probably one of the reasons why I didn't do a hardware modification. And like I don't use the Vision Pro for longer periods of time. Sometimes like for a couple of hours, and I take it off, do something else. So I don't really have the discomfort most people talk about.
Okay, that's good.
So I use a solo loop, and that works fine for now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love the solo loop.
Yeah,
I added the top one too because I'll have some longer sessions and just it helps. Yeah,
for sure.
As far as using the Apple Vision Pro, you're using it in ways you expected when you ordered it, or is there anything that was unexpected about your usage of it?
Like probably just closing myself out of the real world when I'm working. That helps me focus better, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't think of using it that way when I bought it, but like with headphones and noise cancellation, like closing yourself out from the real world is a nice thing. Yeah,
it's interesting because it really does trick your brain in good ways. Like it's just, I always love the daytime environments at night. It kind of like fools my brain, like getting a little bit more active, and that's nice.
Yeah.
And then any disappointments so far with kind of the platform overall or the hardware?
I think the biggest disappointment for me was when I put it on the first time, because I don't have a lot of experience with other headsets. I wasn't really aware of the field of view limitations. So when you see the Apple videos, you see the like visionOS floating in space without the black diving goggles. So when I put it on the first time, I thought, like, do I do something wrong here? I don't see everything, but I kind of realized that's a thing for VR headsets. The field of view is not the same as your eyes. but yeah, that will improve with every generation. But so far, no other disappointments, I would say.
Yeah, that's identical to mine. Like when I put it on, like I have other headsets, and like they're all different between different headsets as far as the field of view. And just based on marketing, I expected it to be a little bit more, because that wasn't something anyone mentioned back in the previews that they had back a year ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's like, surely someone would have mentioned that if that was the case. But yeah, The Verge mentioned in their review very nicely and accurately. And yeah, so that was the one kind of surprise that it really was that. Cause, yeah, I thought it'd be a little bit more than that as far as the field of view. For input on the Vision Pro, do you have a standalone keyboard and trackpad, or are you using the Mac mainly when you want to input text and kind of work in that way?
So I use a standalone keyboard and mouse when I'm on my Mac, but visionOS 1 doesn't support mouse input. They only support trackpad.
Right. Yeah.
So when I use my Vision Pro, I use my Mac because it has a trackpad. But with visionOS 2, this problem is solved. So
nice. Yeah.
I will probably use my standalone keyboard and mouse again.
Oh, nice. Good. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't tried the mouse. I've just been, using my Mac with the trackpad, and that's been kind of the way they do it. But yeah, it's great they finally fixed that kind of oversight. It's like, come on, guys. You guys can work with those. So, any other favorite kind of visionOS 2 features? By the time this releases, it'll have been out in the wild for a couple days. So people that have been
probably
not having a developer account can finally install it, because there was no public beta this time, which I'm sure Apple was scared about regular people installing it, and if it kind of messed up, bringing it to the Apple Store to fix kind of thing.
Yeah. They are very cautious about it, and I get it. I didn't install the beta myself as well, because if I break my device, I have to drive to Germany.
Yeah, not a great
to get service.
Yeah.
So I was a bit cautious as well. But, I saw the keynote and YouTube video. So, really looking forward to the small improvements they make. Even if it's the gestures with your hand to open the home screen.
Yeah.
To reordering apps. So I welcome those improvements. I'm not sure if it's in the first visionOS 2 release, but the mirroring of your Mac with the ultra wide screen. Looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, I think that one's later this year still. It was on the GM, so I'm very excited for that. That'll be very cool. One little setting to enable when you get all set up with visionOS 2 is if you go in the developer menu, there's a little toggle now to use your Mac virtual display in fully immersive environments. If you toggle that, you can be in Avengers Tower and throw your Mac display in there with you to be working in any environment like that. So that's a pretty cool thing to just toggle as a developer.
Oh, that's nice, yeah. I'm curious if they will release that in the non-developer settings as well.
I hope so. I'm guessing for visionOS 3, though, that this is just their test, and it's mainly there for developers working on fully immersive apps so that they can not be cut off from Xcode while they're doing that. But I'm enjoying it. Just it's great having I'll throw iMessage up on my Mac in full screen as I'm watching a video and full, in fully immersive. It's nice to have access to that and not every single time I do reply, take it out. Yeah.
That's nice.
Any other just general sentiments or thoughts before we dive into Capture?
No, actually not. Maybe going back to favorite ways of using Vision Pro. I really like the third-party Formula One apps. I don't know if you have tried that.
I have them installed. I've not actually been around when races are happening though to see anything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really nice. That's what I like about them. They use the platform so you can have multiple windows open for multiple drivers, and I 3D track in front of you where you can see the driver's position and things like that. So that's really nice.
That's really cool. There's so many media experiences that I think just over the next year will be interesting to see how that develops and improves.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's get in the capture. Can you kind of give me the quick elevator pitch for what this app is all about?
Yeah, sure. So I once looked up that we forget 90% of the information we consume in about a week. And we have a lot of great tools for that already, like your Notes app, To-Do app, Calendar app. But like getting the thought out of your head into one of these apps can take a couple of steps. And that's fine. But if you're deep into something and you want to get out of your head, but you don't want to make the choice, okay, do I need to have this in my To-Do app, Calendar, or Note app? You just want it to drop somewhere, and that's where Capture comes in. It's like your thought inbox, kind of like a sticky note. Like just write something down, and the organization can come later. And Capture also helps in like all the data that you put into the app. And export that to your calendar. So if you say next Monday do this, and you export it to your calendar, it automatically exports the data as well. So yeah, it's a thought inbox where you can jot down your thoughts and organize them later.
Yeah, and the integration with the different apps is really impressive, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. But that was like, oh wow, this is pretty powerful. Did the idea for Capture come from a need you had yourself with like you're running up against this kind of this problem and an app that you made for you as well?
Yeah, 100%. So I saw that like when I was working and deep into something, and I got a message like, hey, can you make a reservation for the restaurant or something? I would say yes, and then continue working. But most of the times you forget that, or you have it in your head, and it adds a little bit of thought. It reserves a space in your head, and you don't want that. You just wanted to write it down and continue working. So yeah, definitely something a need that came from myself.
Nice. Yeah. There's definitely times where you'll, thumbs up on a message like, oh crap, I never actually put that anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
What kinds of things are you capturing on your end? Like, is it stuff from, iMessage or other things that just pop in your head?
It's mostly like ideas or thoughts that strike me on the go. Mm-hmm. Ideas for apps, for Capture or something else. Hey, that would be nice to add. And that just strikes me, and then I drop it in Capture, and then later on make it a to-do or just dismiss it because it was not a really great idea. And I also use it as a kind of bookmarking tool. Like when I'm browsing Twitter, I can export a tweet, like a nice new API Apple has, that could be of use for Capture or another app. So a bookmarking tool and ideas that strike me on the go. That's the two main use cases for me.
What other platforms is it on outside of visionOS?
So it started on iOS. It has visionOS support and macOS.
Is there a watch app in the works as well, or no?
It's on my to-do list.
Okay.
The watch is... it really makes sense for Capture to exist on the watch because you always have it on your wrist and then start talking to your wrist.
Yeah.
Without taking your phone out of your pocket. It's like made for Capture. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Definitely one day it will exist.
Cool. Yeah. You could even have like the action button on the Ultra, like hook into that somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. And then the app is free to download and use, from what I can tell, pretty much entirely for free. And then there's kind of what kind of limitations will you run up against with the free version?
So basically none. The full app is available in the free version, but after you hit 20 captures, you get you need to unlock the full version. And I think 20 is a nice limit to allow you to get a feel of the app, how you would use it. And if you reach 20, you probably get a lot of value from the app. So then I ask a small compensation to unlock the full app.
No, yeah, I noticed as well. It's like, oh, this feels full app, and that's a good number too, because just like with Call Sheet, Casey Liss's app, you get around 20 searches or so, and by the time you hit 20, you're like, I really like this. Subscribe.
Yeah.
And with your app, I love that there's both a lifetime unlock, which is very reasonable, and as well as a subscription if you want even cheaper price. But both options are there for you, which is nice.
Yes.
Have you noticed there's strikingly few just text-based apps at visionOS? Like, writers that out there, like so many of the ones you'd think would be there just aren't there.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I think it comes down to that, like visionOS is not the best platform to have text input. It's like hard to input text if you don't have a keyboard attached.
Right. It's definitely like, have your keyboard. Otherwise, you probably don't want to be working here unless dictation's available for your language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even then, if you have dictation,
editing what it dictates, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's hard. So that's probably one of the reasons.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's such a shame because like when you do have a keyboard, it's so nice being in like an environment and just like, being there with your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your favorite kind of aspects of your visionOS version of Capture? Like, what do you like most about the support?
I like how native it feels. So I really aimed for having that native look of visionOS. Like it's a new platform for most users, and Apple has done a great job in making that familiar with the users. So I just sticked with that, and you don't have a new learning curve when using Capture because it feels so familiar. Like even with the tabs on the leading side or the text input field that's like an ornament at the bottom, it feels really at home in visionOS. And I wanted to add a spatial element as well. Otherwise, it would be like a floating big iPad version of the app. So I added like that you can open the notes in a sticky view and place it anywhere in your world to have that like visionOS extra.
Nice, yeah. And as a user of Apple Vision Pro, you mentioned some of them, but design considerations that you wouldn't have made otherwise, like that text input on the bottom, I think is a big one. Are there any other things that you feel, because you're a user, you've learned kind of best practices that you might not have otherwise?
Yeah, so I think I probably named two of them. But like the tabs on the left, you have the space. So on your iPhone, you just have a fixed screen estate. So you have to kind of figure out where to place certain things. But on visionOS, like you have more space and you can place controls outside of the window. So you can switch tabs outside of the main window. And like the text field at the bottom. These are small things, but I think they really make Capture feel at home.
For sure.
On visionOS.
And it is such a nice thing not being constrained anymore by just the window itself and being able to have these more expansive apps.
Yeah. And I think Capture for visionOS can make more use of the platform. So having multiple windows with different functionality is something on my wish list for sure.
And in Capture, you begin with an inbox and an archive. What other kind of things can what's kind of the organizational system outside of that?
Yeah, so it started with an inbox and archive, just two basic lists you could have. And while using the app, I I felt the need to have like a bit more organization, and the users requested it as well. And you can do that in different ways, but I chose like to have capture lists, which the user can create if they want. If they don't want it, it's fine. Mm-hmm. The inbox works the same as the first version, but you can make capture lists and place your captures in a list if you want to have that extra organization in the app.
What lists have you made for yourself?
So my lists most of them are temporary. So if I'm working on a new version for an app, I'll create a list and then just write the things down that I need to do, or like have inspiration. And when I'm finished, I delete the list. But I also have like bookmarks, inspiration that I just collect through the time, and that stay there. So I have like an apps bookmark list for nice things I see online that could be of use in one of my apps, and I drop them down there.
Nice, yeah. Do you think you'll eventually add groups to the organization, so you could say have a personal group with some lists kind of associated for that and work, and have different lists for that versus just a single queue of lists?
Probably not. So when I add new features or organization to capture, I try to make it as simple as possible, and adding groups for personal or work adds an extra layer of organization, which can confuse people and can make it harder to use. But I want to stick to the promise to make it as easy as possible, and to add some light organization that is optional. So yeah, adding an extra layer of organization is not something I think I would add. Gotcha.
Yeah, I totally get it. There's a fine balance between too much and
exactly.
And figuring out the proper UI to try to do stuff in a way that's not confusing and all that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned at the beginning here the sharing options, and I find this very powerful for what you've created here. Can you tell me a bit about kind of the system and your favorite ways you share your captures with other apps?
Yeah, so I use Things as my to-do list. So that is probably the most used one. It was also the first third-party export option in Capture because I used it myself.
Yeah. And amazingly, they have an awesome visionOS app too. So that
exactly.
Handy. Yeah.
And probably Calendar. So if I write something down that has a date and time to it, I can just drop it in Capture and export it to Calendar. It will be pre-filled. So I use Things and Calendar the most.
Awesome. And as far as the captures, you're able to go in and add a time and date that is then shared alongside the text, and with the Calendar Task Manager, kind of use that as a data point for that input. Is there any other things you hope to add for editing your captures to make them more, data rich, or was, time and date kind of the big one for you?
It was probably time and date and URL, like links. So if you type a link, we capture the text that as well, and we'll show a nice preview of the link. And if the export option supports or have a separate field for a link, I will export that as well. Yeah, these are probably two. The only two that will be detected by Capture.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So the current exports include Calendar, Reminders, Things, Craft, OmniFocus Shortcuts, Todoist, iWriter, and Obsidian. Now, some apps like iWriter don't even allow their iPad apps to be installed, which is a damn shame. Have you considered, instead of having it listed as like not installed in the app, to say not available, or say available in iOS kind of thing, to just kind of point people that it's you can't even install this thing here yet?
Yeah, great point. So That probably slipped through because I share a lot of code between the platforms. So that's something I need to clean up for sure. But it also it's also maybe a good way, because if one of the export options become available, I don't need to update
it.
because
Yeah.
So it will be automatically available for everyone. But yeah, I can do a better job there for sure.
Yeah. Are you hopeful iWriter and other apps do come over?
Yeah, sure. The more apps that come over to visionOS, the better the integration with Capture. So the users of Capture use a lot of third-party apps, and I try to add a lot of them, and I hope that they bring their apps to visionOS as well.
Yeah. For Shortcuts, which is on Vision Pro as their iPad app, and hopefully by the time visionOS 3 rolls around, they finally port it over as a full native app. What kind of configuration do you have to do in advance of using it with Capture? What's kind of the shortcut building process look like there?
Yeah, so I looked for ways to like an API to get all the shortcuts of the user, so I can show them in the sheet as well. But Apple really doesn't have one. So, but I came across the URL scheme for shortcuts, where you can run one shortcut and provide the input there. So I used that to add shortcut export for Capture. So users have to create a shortcut in the Shortcuts app, give it a name, and only add the name to Capture to export text to the shortcut, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Have you found any shortcuts that you're using? I know you mentioned things and calendar are your most used ones, but I'm not sure if you've found a use of shortcuts with Capture.
To explain why I added shortcuts to Capture is because Capture users use a lot of different third-party apps.
Yeah.
And I try to add a few of them if it's possible, if the third-party apps support them to Capture. But some apps don't have that functionality, so I'm limited there. But they have shortcut support, so it's an extra way of exporting your Capture to the app you use, even when I didn't support it yet. Before the shortcuts integration, I got a lot of emails. Hey, can you add this app, or can you add this app? And I would say, yeah, sure, in one of the upcoming updates. And now I say, in one of the upcoming updates, but you can also use it right now by creating a shortcut and running that in Capture. It's probably used a lot for third-party export options that I don't support yet.
Gotcha. Yeah. And yeah, Shortcuts is such an open box, which is so nice for flexibility there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then one really nice thing I noticed in the OmniFocus export is you can specify certain projects rather than just sending it to the inbox.
Yeah.
Have you considered like a mode of, I know this would add complexity to it, but when you do your export to OmniFocus, of maybe the user sets up a few, like 2 or 3 different projects that they want to be working with to kind of pick during export?
Yeah, great point. So I've considered that, not only for OmniFocus, but also for other export options as well. Because now you set up a project or some tags for all your exports, but maybe you want to do that for certain things. So that's not something I've figured out yet, but definitely something I would love to dive deeper in. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm not sure the best UI to do it. I'm not sure if if there'd be a way to duplicate the OmniFocus as a list there and just like have OmniFocus, and call it something else, OmniFocus, brain dump, OmniFocus, whatever. And I'm not sure if there. The UI there's the tricky part. I'd probably say.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then things. I love that the first time you do it there, when it launches things, it asks you, do you want to allow URL schemes to work with things? So it kind of like configures it after you actually launch it from within Capture, which is nice. Kind of thing how
Yeah.
you set it up.
Yeah, the system helps me there a lot. So I only have to define which URL schemes I can open in the app, and then the system handles the authorization part there. So yeah, that really helps.
And then I believe capture is plain text.
Yeah.
Is Markdown something you've considered adding, or is kind of the very nature of these very short captures kind of make that not make a whole lot of sense?
Yeah, so I've had the requests a couple of times. Capture is not a full-blown note-taking app. It's like for those quick thoughts. So I'm not sure if Markdown support is something high on my priority list. But if the user requests grow and everybody asks for Markdown, like I can dive deeper and see how it would be a good fit for capture, but not something I'm planning right now.
Yeah, because it is kind of just the brain dump. Let me get the sentence or two out. Unlike drafts, with drafts you're given this full window of you're able to jump around different paragraphs and kind of that kind of input.
Yeah.
Versus this is just it's capture. It's a brain dump. Really quickly.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a different approach from that end.
Yeah, exactly.
You do have a few different gestures you can configure in the app. You both have a leading swipe, swiping right or left or whatever, where you can configure either to archive or store, share, move that to a list or delete it. Have you in your own usage of capture stuck to the defaults, or are you using one of the more custom options for your needs?
And so I think the only thing I changed is I replaced archive with delete.
Okay.
Because the default is archive. So yeah, that's it. I don't need to archive most things because capture is like a temporary place for me to dump my thoughts. And if I'm done with them, I can just delete them. Makes
sense, yeah. Outside of the main exports, there's also a nice big share button, which I find very, very useful. And as we just spoke about, that's also can be a swipe gesture, which is nice. And that share option lets you share that capture with the standard share sheet. And there's a lot of stuff in that share sheet, including Apple Notes. I'm sure Mastodon apps, and whatnot would be a place you could share as well. One funny thing I noticed is you can share to capture with, do a recursive thing, which obviously, that's because if you're in Safari, you could probably share, within visionOS Safari in the capture that way, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's funny, indeed. I added the share sheet as a backup thing as well, because I don't support some apps, or some apps will never be supported because they don't have the integration to call them from the outside. But the share sheet...
Yeah, the URL schemes, kind of the essential components make that all work, right?
Exactly. So the share sheet is like an extra way. If you don't see your app in the export list, then you can just call the share sheet and still do it. So yeah.
Does Apple Notes have a URL scheme? I don't even know.
They have one, but it's not really documented somewhere. And I'm not sure if I can create a note. I think you can open notes, but I haven't found the create URL scheme yet. And it's something high on my list, but I'm limited there with what Apple Notes offers.
And they have extensive shortcut support for people that do need that.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can create a shortcut and call that from capture.
Yeah. And then one thing I was looking and considering is the different size classes with visionOS. And I'm wondering, have you looked into allowing the window to get so small it's just the capture box, or alternatively a way to kind of detach the capture box into its own separate window? So if you want to, you could just have the capture box, because from a just visual space, it can take up some room, and it'd be nice to just be able to just brain dump and not even see what all the captures are as you're doing that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's something, like I mentioned before, these are things that make Capture feel more alive in the platform.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's probably something I will add to my to-do list after this.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It'd be so nice just to have that, just floating text, input box where it's like, oh, got an idea, let me throw it in Capture. And that way you can kind of have the app open all the time and it's not kind of in your way. It can just kind of be there kind of as you're working.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
What's next for Capture? Any updates in the works that you're able to share at this point?
Yeah, so last week I started rolling out image support. So you can capture images, like if you make a screenshot of something, you can just share it with Capture. So that's something I'm excited about, and something I think that will add value to Capture. And right now I'm in the middle of the iOS 18 update, where I will add full Siri support. So you can just call Siri to capture something. Full Siri shortcuts integration. So you can read and write to Capture from the Shortcuts app in your workflows. So these things will probably release sometimes next week. And then there are like longer term things, like I want to dive deeper in audio captures or more long form things. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how that will fit into Capture yet. And watchOS support, like I mentioned before. These are things like I would love to dive deeper into.
Yeah, that stuff will be very interesting. The photo stuff will be very nice, especially on the phone, just snapping up quick photos so it's there and it's not cluttering up your photo library at the same time, which will be nice. Exactly.
Yeah, and probably like I've added photos, but adding files is not far away from that piece of code. So probably file support if you have a PDF file and you want to save that.
Nice. And you're just using iCloud for the sync component, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I use Swift Data, where I can like literally check a box to add iCloud support. So it's private, so it's on the user's own account, and I don't have to build a whole syncing thing. It will just work. So that's nice.
Well, anything else about Capture we haven't touched on yet that you'd like to before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered a lot already.
Well, where can people follow you online and learn more about Capture?
So I'm active on X and Threads, with the handle @AF_Simsir. Well, probably in the podcast notes as well. And yeah, you can look up Capture in the App Store and find more about the app there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great learning more about Capture and kind of your process of getting the Vision Pro up and running in Amsterdam for the rest of your neighbors have one.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, that's my discussion all about Capture. My thanks again to Furkan for his time recording this episode. My thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. As a reminder, you can support this podcast over visionpros.fm/Patreon or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. And if you haven't yet left a review in Apple Podcasts, I'd really appreciate it if you could head over to Apple Podcasts to do just that. I hope everyone's enjoying visionOS 2 and diving into all the little changes they've made, as it is a great update. And we'll be diving more into that in the next episode of this podcast. With that, I'll talk to everyone again real soon.